An American scholar claims that, quote, because democracy is a government by persuasion and deliberation, it implies the existence of what in the British tradition is known as the loyal opposition. So long as the opposition is attached to the fundamental principles on which democratic government is based, organized opposition to the prevailing government is not only legitimate, but essential to its proper functioning. Do you agree or disagree? Why? How would you describe or define loyal opposition, and how would you distinguish it from obstructionism? What purposes does or should loyal opposition serve in a democracy? You may begin.
To you, I'm an atheist. To God, I'm the loyal opposition. Although Woody Allen exaggerated the function of his religious beliefs, the crux of his statement remains true. The loyal opposition has often been branded with less savory terms: un-American, unpatriotic, or traitor. Yet loyal opposition remains, not because of its popularity, but because it is an essential component to the American democratic system.
We agree with Edward R. Murrow, who stated that when the loyal opposition dies, the soul of America dies with it. The Constitution may have been ratified in 1788, but potential success of the American experiment was demonstrated 12 years later, when after narrowly losing the presidency to Thomas Jefferson, John Adams and the Federalists peacefully relinquished their decade-long hold on the national government. Although the two parties were bitter rivals, they adhered to the will of the people. This critical date in American history was defined not by bullets or dollars, but by loyal opposition.
In fact, it was almost 30 years later that the phrase loyal opposition was coined. In the House of Commons, John Hobhouse claimed his Whig party was not the political enemy of the crown, but rather His Majesty's loyal opposition. When Hobhouse and the Whigs regained the majority, he bestowed the title upon the largest minority party, the leader of which has since been referred to as the leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition.
Loyal opposition provides a second opinion on important governmental decisions. It encourages deliberation on legislation in conflict with the minority platform and uses all means within the democratic process to prevent an opposition bill from passage. The critical difference between loyal opposition and obstructionism is that while loyal opposition operates within the democratic process, obstructionism deliberately interferes with the process of lawmaking.
In Federalist 10, James Madison warns that political parties can become obstructionist factions by only focusing on one impulsive passion adverse to the rights of other citizens.
Arguably, the most prevalent example of obstructionism is the Senate filibuster. Filibustering obstructs the democratic process by preventing a vote on issues the minority party is bound to lose, preventing even popular legislation from passing. Most infamously, Strom Thurmond launched an unsuccessful 24-hour filibuster against the Civil Rights Act of 1957, which originally passed the Senate with a 60-15 vote.
Loyal opposition bestows its best gift upon democracy in the form of discourse. The term best policy option is often used in congressional committees when considering legislation. For example, congressional Democrats recently passed sweeping healthcare reforms. It is now up to Republicans to propose a better policy option. This is the nature of loyal opposition. Ultimately, the opposition party has to convince the public that they provide a better alternative than the government headed by the existing party in power.
Loyal opposition has its faults. When passion and zeal replace reason and compromise, bloodshed is inevitable. The 1850 South complied with the restrictions on slavery imposed by the North, such as the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850. Yet despite major concessions by both sides, the nation was a time bomb. The last tick rang out as Lincoln won the presidency and South Carolina seceded.
Even today, partisan fervor can culminate in violence, as some fringe groups of the Tea Party movement, upset with the passage of the healthcare reform, have sent death threats to U.S. congressmen. But without the voice of opposition, democracy itself can become the tyrant, and majority rule can quickly devolve into majority despotism.
In the over 200 years since her founding, America has abolished slavery, risen from economic depression, and defeated fascism on the battlefield. Through unity, we have navigated countless storms, yet loyal opposition rights the ship and prevents a fall into the depths of majority tyranny. Thank you, and we are now ready for your questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your opening statement here. I want to just get some clarification. You said that we have loyal opposition because it is essential. Could you make sure you clarify for us exactly kind of what those mechanisms are? I mean, there are other things that we might argue are essential, but we don't necessarily always get. So what are the mechanisms that we use for loyal opposition as opposed to obstructionism?
Well, I think if you look at the example of Lincoln, when he was running for the Senate seat, the Dred Scott the Dred Scott ruling was issued, and he completely disagreed with the ruling, but he knew he had to adhere to the rule of law, and he said, we're going to do everything we can within the democratic process to overturn this.
Also, we can look to other ways that we can work through the system to achieve change in the democratic system. In the case of Pollock v. Farmers in 1895, the Supreme Court ruled the income tax was unconstitutional. Later, Congress amended the Constitution with the 16th Amendment to allow for the income tax. So we see that working through the democratic process, we are able to have efficient change.
And in addition, with the recent Arizona immigration bill, the protesters at the protest, they had voter registrations, and they said that you can change the bill through the ballot, and that shows how the people are also responsible to oppose.
And also, going back to Lincoln, he actually, within his own cabinet, he created a team of rivals of sorts when he had Democrats and Republicans working together to propose this best policy option. So we see Lincoln embracing loyal opposition within the executive branch itself.